Welcome to Forbes Newsroom. Joining me now is Maggie McGrath, the editor of ForbesWomen. Maggie, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. So in a recent Forbes piece that you wrote, you posed the question, you won't believe how many all-female CEO-CFO duos run the 500 largest public U.S. companies. So first of all, how did that idea come about?
Well, how many do you think there are?
My guess will probably be higher than what it is.
Yes, and that's exactly why we wrote this story. At the end of September, pharmaceutical giant GSK announced that they had poached a CFO, Chief Financial Officer, from Burberry. Her name's Julie, and the headlines were talking about, yay, all-female duo. And my editor and I were like, okay, should this be the headline? Why is this news?
And why are they celebrating that? Shouldn't that be, that sounds like a rarity in corporate worlds. That should instead be pose the question, why aren't there more?
Exactly. Well, exactly, because we see and we track the number of women becoming CEOs, right? Mm-hmm. Every time there's a new woman at the head of a publicly traded company, like I think about Roz Brewer, who became the head of Walgreens last year. Okay. There were a lot of headlines celebrating, she's also a black woman, and there's so few black women running large companies in the U.S., so each one of those is a major news moment. I think what we're not looking at enough is when there are other C-suite appointments made. And so when you look at the C-suites of America, we know that women are underrepresented, but when you take a very small number, which is of this data set of the 500 largest publicly traded companies by revenue in the U.S., the women who run those, and the women who are CFOs for those companies, and you cross the data, 3.
Out of 500.
So there are 2 teams right now that have interim appointments. Okay. So if those interim appointments become permanent, the number will move to 5. And otherwise, we have Accenture, Kohl's, and Insight Enterprises who have one woman as CEO and a different woman as CFO.
Wow. So what is the explanation you found when working on this piece as to why male and male duos are the dominant in corporate America?
It's a great question. And a lot of people told me lack of representation. If you can't see it, you can't be it. And it sounds cliche, but Glenys Bryan, she is the CFO of Insight Enterprises, one of those 3 companies. She's a black woman, and she said, she never saw anyone who looked like her in the C-suite. And it took role models and mentors telling her you can be anything, you can do anything. But at the same time, we also have to look at the pipeline. We know the pipeline is strong, but it's not enough to just interview one woman for a role. You need to make sure you're talking to a lot of women as you're promoting them and just getting more into the upper levels of management.
So you had a really interesting conversation with Glenys Bryan. Can you expand on that?
I had a great conversation with her, and Joyce is the CEO of Insight Enterprises, and the 2 of them were so interesting. Joyce actually joined Insight Enterprises as CEO because of Glenys. Wow. Glenys has been CFO since 2007. Very powerful position. It hasn't always been that way. She worked at Ryder Transportation. It's a logistics company and transportation company. She told me earlier in her career she was a treasurer. She thought that's where the power was. She got to work on a lot of cool deals. Mm-hmm. She was assistant treasurer, was doing a lot of really good deals, and her boss calls her into his office, and she's like, this is it, I'm gonna get the promotion. And she didn't get the promotion.
Oh.
A white man got the promotion, and she was asked to train this gentleman.
So what did she do in this moment?
She knew that she had 2 choices. One, she could become resentful and retract, basically, and say, like, you're on your own, this was my role, I'm not gonna help you. Instead, she chose to be gracious. She trained him, and after about a year, he left, and she got the role. And she basically said, you have the choice to be angry, or you can move forward. You can look on the bright side, which is a very tough pill to swallow, but I think it shows resilience and it shows stamina, and, you kind of need that toughness in corporate America, unfortunately.
And so now she's CFO. So what was her message for those dealing with adversity, as well as the other CEO-CFO combos that you talked to?
So I also spoke to the combo at Kohl's, Michelle Gass and Jill Tim. Everyone said it's mentorship first and foremost, but it's not just women helping women. Men need to sponsor and mentor women too. Men need to look at the women in their organizations and find P&L, profit and loss opportunities for them, because it's not just enough to be good at your job and visible. You really need that hardcore experience with managing money, managing big deals, so you can enter these leadership roles.
And in 2020, there was a big push for diversity, equity, inclusion in the workplace. Were those calls empty are we seeing those calls not answered now?
It depends who you talk to. I think there are some people, and I would be inclined, I'm impatient, so I'm inclined to say it's been a little too slow and change isn't happening fast enough. What Joyce Mullen, the CEO of Insight Enterprises, said, and others told me too, you have to look beyond just the past 2 or 3 years. Mm-hmm. If you look to 2017, if you look to 2012, if you look into the 1990s, when you look over time, there has been progress. It's just this change takes more than a year or 2 to make. I hear that, but I would call on corporate America to move a little faster because, like you said, there were so many diversity pledges in 2020, and I think some companies, frankly, have taken their foot off the gas pedal.
And so you said that these CEO-CFO duos that you did talk to said that mentorship and sponsorship, both between females and males, is important to get more diverse people up to these top executive roles. So what other ways can there be more diversity in the workplace aside from that?
Aside from mentorship, there's the recruitment. There's looking at the colleges where you recruit from. I know some companies have been very intentional about going to historically black colleges and universities and making sure they're recruiting from there and not just the traditional Ivy Leagues. I know at Insight Enterprises, they also have a board readiness program that they have for all female employees. And that is a retention tool. You know, when you're investing in their professional development, people are likely to stay. But it's also giving them hardcore skills that they can then levy to become leaders within the organization.
Well, Maggie McGrath, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks so much.